In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
It is a groundbreaking $418 million legal agreement that could drive down commission rates and shrink the number of real estate agents. This is a revolutionary judgment. We've talked about it before. This from the Wall Street Journal this morning. Realtors reach settlement that will change how Americans buy and sell homes. The National Association of Realtors has reached a nationwide settlement of claims, and these claims are that the industry conspired to keep agent commissions high. This is a deal that they've just made that may produce the biggest change in how Americans buy and sell homes in decades. It's a $418 million agreement, as mentioned. It will make it easier for homebuyers to negotiate fees with their agents and could lead to more buyers really foregoing using agents altogether.
They say that 6% commission in the home buying transaction is gone now.
That's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money.
Especially here in California where, the median price of a home is between 800 and 1.2, right?
Thank you. And I've tried to negotiate those rates before, negotiate them down, and they're very, very tough on that. Very little wiggle room. They abandoned these long-standing industry rules that have required most home sale listings to include an upfront offer telling buyers' agents how much they're going to get paid. It was really a way to incentivize, when you list your house, getting people through, getting agents interested, right? So sellers have typically set these buyers' agents' fees, and consumer advocates say that this arrangement has prevented buyers from negotiating to save money. And they've kept commissions in the U.S. higher than in most of the world. And so that's what this court case was about. So if this settlement is approved by a federal court, listings of homes for sale in most parts of the country would no longer include upfront offers to buyers' agents. This would start in mid-July. Buyers would be able to negotiate compensation upfront with their agent. The settlement money is going to be distributed to recent home sellers nationwide. Buyers are likely to be, they say here and suggest that they'll be more price conscious when selecting an agent. And now, I suppose if you're an agent, it gives you some leverage. You can offer sort of essentially a smaller fee, and you could modify your services maybe, in exchange for a smaller fee.
According to CNN Business, they say it means real estate commissions will fall between 25 and 50%.
Wow, that's huge. And that does change the nation's real estate agent pool dramatically, potentially. I've negotiated it down on my last two transactions. I have to do this to see that. 6%
is ridiculous these days. Yeah.
There's RN Sue. She's successfully done that then. It's not always done successfully. Good for you for doing it. But it's an area, you always feel as though there are a lot of areas where there's wiggle room in buying and selling a house. They do that physical inspection. You get credit for certain things that the physical inspector sees. There were a couple of those physical inspectors and also appraisers who are regular listeners to this show. But the one place there really hasn't been a lot of wiggle room, typically, at least in my experience, is that real estate agent fee. Again, because you don't want to disincentivize your agent from representing your house aggressively. Here's something from Daniel. The last time he was with us last night, by the way, in the chat. In the hangout, in the meetup. The last time I sold a house, I asked the listing agent if he could negotiate the commission rate. And he started to, what is it? I can't see it now.
She started to cry, seriously.
Oh, my God.
I know. I'd like to talk about your fee. Why have to
Yeah,
talk
my
about
fee.
my
Please
fee?
don't touch my fee. I've got a child in college. Well, everybody's got to make a living, and and Brian says I've purchased and sold several of my homes without an agent over the last couple of years. So there's that. Need a lawyer, not a real estate agent, says somebody else. Ricky says that, actually. It's funny because oftentimes they'll tell you to get a lawyer even though you have a real estate agent. So, I mean, there's that as well. But, I mean, the world of real estate is an interesting one, and it's full of many intricacies. But this is titanic. This is huge. This changes the industry. I mean, and as they suggested here in the Wall Street Journal, it may change the number of people who want to get into the real estate agency business, The agreements, finally, before we move on, will resolve wide-ranging legal exposure for this industry, which has been facing a series of antitrust lawsuits similar to the Kansas City case, where this was first, where they delivered a $1.8 billion verdict against the real estate industry trade group. That's NAR, I think they're called, National Association of Realtors. Mm-hmm. $1.8 billion was the verdict. Okay, and this happened back in October. They found that the industry rules for how buyers' agents are paid were keeping commission rates artificially high. So this is in response to that, and will hopefully resolve other legal exposure, is their point here in the Journal. So I don't know. I mean, so many people have gone into real estate. It's a great way to make a living. It's a great way to essentially leverage your network. A lot of people who have very connected lives go into real estate because oftentimes, it takes just a handful of listings and, you're flush. So
they're saying the way that real estate agents will be paid will change, and no one knows exactly how. Some people say the agent may now just charge a $3,000 flat fee for selling your house. Others will offer a more competitive commission, perhaps. We don't know how this is going to work out, and maybe different agents will be doing it different ways, and there will be no standard.
I suspect it'll be a little bit of the latter, because the thing about the high price tag properties, and I lived next door, 2 doors down from Travis Scott, and his place went for $45 million. It was listed for $45 million. Then it dropped to $29 million, $25. I mean, he paid cash, I think, at $25 or $27 million. Now, my place my entire home could fit into his foyer, okay?
Yours was the sad little house next door.
Thank you. It was precisely. But my point is, you began to see how, there's Travis's spot. You began to see how challenging it is often to sell even gorgeous properties like that to people who can afford those big price tags. So here's my point. Sometimes, agents deserve more for being able to move a big property like that with a big price tag. But they shouldn't be bleeding. And I'm not suggesting that they've been bleeding, but I mean, it's a pretty heavy tag, man, 6% on the kind of asking prices that we see in the Bay Area and California. Please. I mean, it's pretty wild. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, this falls into the disorder part of Law and Disorder. In North Carolina, the GOP nominee to run North Carolina's public schools called for violence against Democrats, including executing Obama and Biden. She's a total loon. She's going to control an $11 billion budget in North Carolina's public schools, and she has a history marked by extreme and controversial comments of the sorts that I've just referenced. She shares baseless conspiracy theories, frequently calls for the execution of prominent Democrats. There she is now. Her name is Michelle Marrow. She's a conservative activist, and she upset the incumbent superintendent of public instruction in North Carolina's Republican primary. She's expressed support in 2020 for the televised execution of former President Obama suggested killing then President-elect Joe Biden. In other comments on social media between 2019 and 2021, I mean, this is not a long time ago. I mean, at least with Aaron Rodgers, we got to go back over 10 years. I mean,
She's crazy.
She is a nut job.
Here's what she said about President Obama. I prefer a pay-per-view of him in front of a firing squad. This is who you're going to put in charge of schools in a state to oversee the education of children? This person? Please.
And I think the other thing that is, I think this is true. You can Google it and check it.
Google it.
I believe her children, and she wants to be in superintendent of public schools and public instruction. Her children are homeschooled. Okay.
What?
Yeah, here
Are
it
they
is.
really?
Thank you. That's right. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy. What business
She's
does
a
she have?
grassroots activist who homeschooled her children. It's
Put her in charge
absolute
of public schools.
and yet you want to be in.
Stop it.
Okay, so that's going on in North Carolina with the GOP candidate there. Mitch McConnell is fuming after the courts are cracking down on Republican judge shopping. Plaintiffs are no longer going to be able to choose which judge hears their case. This is a policy announced this week. It'll enforce this whole random judge selection in civil suits that pertain to national legislation. They oftentimes will bring the civil suit, as you know, and it will have national applicability. And as a result, it's shopped locally, but it applies nationally. It will limit this practice of judge shopping. This is a tactic that's long been utilized to effectively guarantee favorable outcomes by litigants. And you could cherry pick judges. It's a little bit of what we've seen. We're now well acquainted with the legal system, busting over people essentially with the judges that are handpicked. Talked to David Katz about this the other day, and he thinks this is a very big deal. And indeed, it should be. Judge shopping has long been utilized by Republicans who pick single judge judicial districts with conservative inclinations. So these are like rural districts where you're likely to find a judge with conservative inclinations. As I say, inclinations would be a ding word, by the way. But now random judge selection is not going to be geographically restricted. So judges will be chosen randomly from any of the 94 federal judicial districts. You can't look for that rural judge anymore. But Mitch McConnell is criticizing the new policy and saying that it's a partisan policy that does Washington Democrats their bidding. And again, this is out of the federal courts, this new policy. So it's very big, and it will have national repercussions. Meantime, finally in Georgia, with the case involving Donald Trump and the election meddling, Fani Willis can stay on the case, says the judge overseeing this election interference case. But her prosecutor, Nathan Wade, he's the lead prosecutor, who she had a romantic relationship with, he will have to exit the case, not because of a demonstrable impropriety, I should make the point, but because the judge feels, this is Judge Scott McAfee is the guy's name, he feels to avoid the appearance of any impropriety that he should step back. So again, this is Wade, who she had a relationship with. It's not an ongoing relationship now, but the judge's point is to avoid any kind of appearance of impropriety, Wade should step back from the case. Willis can stay on. Wade must withdraw there it is. Judge Willis or Wade must go. So one of you has to get out of things as the entire thing moves forward, just to avoid the appearance of, as I say, a conflict of interest or impropriety of any kind. Quote, as the case moves forward, reasonable members of the public could easily be left to wonder whether the financial exchanges have continued and resulting in some form of benefit to the district attorney, or even whether the romantic relationship has resumed. Put differently, an outsider could reasonably think that the district attorney is not exercising her independent professional judgment totally free of any compromising influences. As long as Wade remains on the case, this unnecessary perception will persist, and so McAfee's order is, look, one of you has to step down so that you don't have the appearance of impropriety. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a historic criminal case, of course, against Trump, essentially suggesting, and I think it's fairly powerful, the case, just based on evidence we've heard, recordings and testimony. That is testimony that we know in depositions, that Trump essentially tried to overthrow the results in Georgia, 11,780 votes.
Trump says, his lawyers say, they can't believe this ruling, that there's total conflict of interest here, and they're going to keep trying to get her out.
Well, they've been pretty successful in delaying things. I've got to say, the delay tactics that Trump has employed have been successful. The legal system seems to, if not be coddling him, at least delaying things in service of his overall plan, which is to delay things, right, past the election. So,
I mean, and this is the one that I think is so obvious to so many people with the I just need 11,780 vote phone call that, has been broadcast around the nation. It's like, what more do you need to show that cheater, pumpkin eater over there?
Yes, and it's funny. Page 24 of the judgment was just the words cheater, pumpkin eater.
Right?
The judge's chambers apparently not reviewing there too carefully. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.